Well, let's continue to bring you more reaction on the Zimbabwe elections, and we're joined by Ziyambi Ziyambi, the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs in Zimbabwe. Good evening to you, Minister, and thank you very much for joining us. How would you describe the mood of your nation tonight?
Good evening. The mood of our nation is very peaceful in Zimbabwe. People are celebrating the win of President Mnangagwa and are eager and are waiting the inauguration so that we can move forward as a nation.
So you would have seen tonight the South African government congratulating your country, but adding that South Africa has taken note of what you would have also seen, Minister, preliminary announcements by the invited international observers missions, including the African Union and the SADC observer missions. South Africa is calling on all parties in Zimbabwe to work in unison to sustain peace and work towards development and shared prosperity. How do you respond to the reaction of your neighbor?
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate the message of congratulations from South Africa, and those are well received, and the message that we must work in unison to ensure peace are also well received. What we believe is that going forward, the parties in Parliament must work to ensure that they work for the development of the country, and we believe that by working together, the call by your President, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, that we must work together in unison to ensure peace can be realized by parties cooperating in Parliament to ensure that whatever programs, whatever will be done in Parliament will sustain the peace that is there obtaining already in our country. So we believe that what is required now, pardon?
I was going to follow up by asking, you know, the troubling thing, Minister, is that the SADC statement said, and you would have seen it, that the elections fell short of the requirements of the Zimbabwe constitution and the Electoral Act, that it failed to conform to international and regional standards, that the result undermines the credibility of the elections. As a custodian of the law, what is your response to that finding?
I read the statement by Mr. Mumba. In fact, Mr. Mumba went out of the mandate that he was given. In his statement, he attacked our laws. He went on to delve into bills that are before Parliament that are not even legislation at the moment. And he intimated that those bills influenced the outcome of the election. He went on to get into issues that were dealt by the courts. He went on to indicate that judges were not supposed to be given what is due in their conditions of service, as if he has the contracts of judges. And we believe that the statement by Mr. Mumba were totally biased and were not aligned to the terms and conditions that observers are supposed to follow. And we don't believe that it was a statement by the generality of the mission, but it was his own views. And we believe that because he is a friend of some of the political parties that were contesting, by the way, the AU regulations and SADC regulations on observer missions indicate that you must declare your interest. And Mr. Mumba never declared his interest. And he was totally conflicted. He went on to challenge our legislation, yet he was supposed to observe the elections according to our laws and regulations. So
Minister, what you're suggesting, if I may, Minister, because we have to have a dialogue, we don't have too much time, and there are a couple of things that I would like to address before we conclude our interview. What you're suggesting then is that SADC allowed itself to be hijacked by a single individual because you are saying that he is acting on his own accord, and yet he is speaking with the mandate of SADC. And that's quite a serious allegation or claim to make, wouldn't you think?
Correct. That's the reason why yesterday our acting foreign minister to summon SADC ambassadors to explain the conduct of Mr. Mumba. Mr. Mumba abused the authority that was vested in him to advance his personal interests because he's friends with certain actors who were contesting elections. And this we can prove because he was challenging the laws that we have. Yet the principle, according to SADC, is you come and observe according to the laws and the constitution of Zimbabwe.
How is it then, Minister, that the other observers as well in the EU, the Commonwealth, COMISA, also raised issues about things like the climate of fear in Zimbabwe? Police routinely banned opposition rallies. There were arrests of opposition supporters. Some talked about Zimbabwe's tough public order laws. Another claim around the ZEC not providing political parties with the voters' roll on time. For those who are relying on what we assume to be credible organizations to share their view, why should we discard the findings of the greater observer mission community?
It's not correct that Commonwealth echoed the same sentiments. It's not correct that AU echoed the same sentiments. But it's correct that EU echoed the same sentiments as Mumba. In fact, the dictum and the nuances of Mumba's statement and EU, you would believe that it's one and the same person who wrote it. And there I would agree. In fact, if I may put it to you, Commonwealth congratulated Zimbabwe for a peaceful, fair and transparent election. And AU did the same. I read the AU statement, it was very fair. I read the Commonwealth statement, it was very fair. But the SADC statement by Mumba, he went outside his mandate, and that is where we have problems with him. In fact, if I may put it to you, that this election is one of the most peaceful, the most fair election that we've ever seen. I also want to highlight that at each and every polling station, all the parties that were represented, that managed to have agents there, the agents signed to indicate that everything went well. It's only at the National Command Center where the leader of one political party instructed his agent that even though you attended to witness the collation, you must not sign. So the agent did not sign, not because the process was not correct, but it was an instruction from his party.
Minister, we thank you for your time, and that's all the time we have for tonight. Ziyambi Ziyambi is Zimbabwe's Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs.